Congratulations on the brand new album. I've had a chance to sit down and take a listen, and it's an amazing album, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, dude.
So, tell us a little bit about what you guys wanted with this album. Like, did you guys sit down and have any goals in mind when you first started working on this album?
Ooh, I feel like...
Nish, you take this one.
Yeah, I feel like, we started working on this one a little bit after, 3 months after we finished the last one, so late 2019. But I want to say once that pandemic year happened, and Alex had such a lovely time living in Portland, Oregon during the middle of that year, that we had this collective decision that we should take this journalistic kind of approach to everything that happened. I think Ali can take it from there as to how that kind of shaped how we were moving forward with the rest of the music from there on out.
Yeah, I mean, when we started, usually we just start with demos, and then we decide on a lyrical idea. And before 2020, I think we were bouncing around the idea of writing about Plato's Republic and making it super metaphysical and heady and stonery and out there. But, 2020 and the turn of events and COVID and all the cliches that everyone's been talking about for the last 2 years happened. And so we decided to go into that, the direction that this album is.
Yeah. And what was that like writing about that? Because I found bands either went one of two ways when the pandemic hit. They either started to write about exactly what they were going through and what they were feeling, or they made a collective decision to, hey, let's just ignore this thing that's happening and let's just go with what we wanted to write about in the first place. What was it like for you capturing what was going on in the world at that time?
Dude, well, to first comment on the first part, escapism in metal is, is as common as peanut butter sandwich or ketchup on your French fries.
He's got Vegemite. Let's
Vegemite on toast, right?
Yep.
Or sprinkles on toast, or whatever that you guys fucking do down there, right?
Yep.
But I feel like collectively as a band, we always kind of led towards listening to. I mean, we grew up in the early 2000s, so bands like System of a Down and Rage Against the Machines and any of the political commentary people of that time, and ultimately we felt like in the mainstream metal community, other than Thy Art Is Murder and a couple other bands, everyone's jumping into escapism, and the underground scene, the hardcore scene, the punk scenes, they still talk about political topics, and that's the only shows I could see at the time.
Yep. And of course, you had a lot more going on there than what we did here. You had political upheaval, from what we were witnessing from this side of the world. At times, we were talking about the fact, and this wasn't just people talking about it, journalists were talking about the fact that it looked like America was going to go into civil war at one point. You guys had a lot that you had to write about. So, how did you choose what you wanted to write about, or did that just change from day to day?
Yeah, I think it changed from day to day. Fortunately for me, but unfortunately for the movement, a lot of the microcosms of problems that America has, or the major problems that America has, was acting out on the streets of Portland, Oregon. And all I had to do was look out my window to see everything from the discrepancy of wealth to bias in political systems, to corrupt the police officials, to corrupt fucking mayors and governors and all this shit, and then also seeing on the ground level the physical fighting between warring factions, gun protests, things that we couldn't miss on the streets where I live. So it of course, it was a learning process for me. I mean, it was my first year living in the city, and then finding out that I was going to participate and act in this theatrical, political microcosm, that fucking people today are still fighting over.
Yep, yeah. So, what was that like for the rest of the band, knowing that you were going through that? Were they worried about for where you were or anything like that?
I mean, I think we all were really a little concerned, honestly. I think Portland probably had it was probably the craziest place next to maybe Seattle. I feel like we're all kind of spectating on the West Coast, just being like, hey, like just be safe, you know. I think Spencer and I had a few outs with the protests while we were there, but it wasn't anything near what Alex had to deal with in Portland. Like, it was just nothing close. So for us, it was like the fact that there's anything that could possibly be more like escalated than that. We were just like, just stay safe. Like, don't, we were like really concerned for a second there,
Definitely, yeah. And how did the pandemic affect how you guys worked? Because, of course, I don't know exactly what happened in the areas that you're in, but here we couldn't basically leave our house for nearly 2 years. Did that kind of impact the way that you guys wrote and recorded this album?
Yeah, absolutely. It 100% did. I mean, as it is, we always do kind of start off with demos very remote, and then we get together like with the last album, we got together a ton to kind of mesh the ideas together. But this time, we probably didn't even meet up until maybe like 9 out of 11 or maybe 9 out of 12 demos were already kind of like set in stone. And then we started kind of going from there and figuring it out. So, I mean, I definitely saw Alex the most just by, being able to catch a flight from Portland to San Francisco and vice versa. That was just less complicated. Or even just driving back and forth, it was just less complicated than saying, our drummer's in Boston, right? So that was a little more complicated. But yeah, I want to say the restrictions definitely eased up near the end of it. So it was almost like it started off really remote, and then by the end of it, it was like we were kind of seeing each other really casually.
Yeah.
But it definitely was, the core idea started off very remote to begin with, and that obviously has implications to the end of the process.
Yeah, some bands have said that during that time and not being able to play shows has actually helped them with the albums that they've got coming out at the moment, because it gave them more time to be able to sit down, work on the album, change things if something didn't sound right and things like that. Did you guys find that as well, that it did give you more time to work on the album?
It gave us more time, but I think, I don't know, I feel like a lot of bands that are coming out and saying stuff like that, they never had a remote process, or they weren't really, pushing the technology as it is until now. I feel like that was part of the pandemic. It kind of forced a lot of people into adopting a lot of more modernized practices for things.
Yep.
I mean, you guys are in Australia. Like, I know, like, all my Australian relatives and friends, like, they're all like just used to working remotely now. They've completely embraced that because it was for 2 years over there, and so I think like that with the music industry, it's a lot of people weren't used to working digitally and working on their own, the way they record their own projects and self-produce stuff. Whereas we were already doing that, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We kind of started off doing that in the first place. So for us, I would say it didn't really change. I want to say it didn't really affect. Outside of the mental strain of being isolated, it didn't really affect the process as much as you would think it did. I think it just is skewed for other bands who haven't been doing that before.
Yeah. Was it a bit of a shock to the system, though, not being able to play shows? Because I know that was something that really affected me mentally. Like, I've been going to shows since I was 13 years old, and suddenly having that taken away from me, it felt like a huge part of my life was missing. So what was that like for you guys, not being able to get out there and do shows?
Well, for us, I'm not sure if this is a cliche story yet, but we released Home, our last album, right at 2019, and after coming back from going from releasing the album and playing bar shows to then playing over in Europe at Wacken, and then all of a sudden lockdowns hit, and we're back to not playing music again. So, I think there was definitely a toll on our mental health for not having the wanderlust of travel.
Yeah.
But I think that comes for everybody that was just locked down and had to stay in their own, their own boundaries.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah. And you mentioned the previous album there as well. Did you guys feel pressure with this album? Because you guys, the last album was so well received by fans. It was well received by music journalists. Did you guys feel any pressure with this album because of that?
I feel like we worked on this album in almost in rebellion to that in a weird way, because I think when you first start out, you don't have the input of all these strangers talking about you or what they think about your music. And then after we did Home, like, it was the biggest it could have ever been. We just had so many people giving their 2 cents on, what we could be, what we sound like, what they thought we were trying to go for, and all sorts of things like that. And there was definitely like a moment, like maybe 3 or 4 months after that album came out, and we started talking about demos for the next one, where I was just super frustrated because I was just constantly, going back and forth between, what are they going to think about this next one? And then ultimately it just became this whole, forget about it. Like, I'm not going to even, if they don't like it, they can suck it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the attitude. And that's sometimes not super healthy in its own right either. I think I found a healthier balance now. But we definitely looked back and said, what, it doesn't matter. This is like a new start, basically. This is like the post-pandemic offering. What does that look like? And, Alex and I were listening to the first album not too long ago, just to kind of put it back on, just to see like what we thought about it. And we're like, it's a snapshot of such a different time that even if, we were stacking that and the people that had their opinions of it to now, we're just different people. So
yeah,
I think it's kind of hard to try to compare yourself to an era that you just aren't even embodying anymore.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. It felt good to just let go of all those opinions and just kind of make something that was totally different.
Yeah. Like, I love some of the choices that you guys make with this album. Like, outside of prog metal, you don't hear many bands start an album with a 7-minute track. Was that something that you guys talked about as well? Like, you wanted to do things that little bit different to everybody else at the moment?
When you're talking about Wasp, I think that song just happened to be 7 minutes long, and it had the coolest intro.
Right? Oh, it's amazing.
Nish and Steve and Spencer really like to finish songs rather than keep them within a time restraint, and it just so happened that Wasp had to be 7 minutes and 30 seconds long for some reason. But the song after that is only 3 minutes and 30 seconds long, right? We counteracted it, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, guys, where to now for you? This album coming out, fans are excited about it. How are you feeling about that right now? And then what are the plans for the future for you guys?
I think we're all kind of on the edge of our seats because it comes out in a month, but we've put out really, really controversial songs to start. So, I'm curious to see what everyone has to say when they hear the entire thing, because you've heard the entire thing, right? So you kind of know that it's got a lot of twists and turns to it. I'm hoping that, we still live in a generation where people can, sit down front to back, listen to the album, and then have their opinion on it. We did 4 singles for this, and there's another one coming out the day of the release, obviously, with a music video. But I think all of us in the band are like, what is the world gonna say about this one? We're kind of really, really just curious. It's like almost like a morbid curiosity, like just gauging after what we've gotten back from the first 3 singles so far.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know from our listeners have fallen in love with the 3 singles that we've been playing so far. Yeah, Wasp was on constant play, I think, for about 2 or 3 weeks on our show. So, yeah, your fans here in Australia are definitely loving it. So, looking at past the album release, what are you guys planning on doing? Will you be getting out there and doing some shows? Is there any chance we might see you guys in Australia or anything like that?
I would love to go to Australia because, like, half of my family lives in Melbourne.
Oh, wow. Yep.
So for me, it's like that would be awesome. Obviously, like logistically, that's crazy. Very few bands kind of cross that threshold where they can really, pull off the logistics for going to Australia and completing a full tour. I think. Do you guys still do You guys had you had the festival in there. I think it was started with an S, if I'm not mistaken. Sonosphere? No, I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, no, our festivals are kind of in a weird stage at the moment. So we used to have two really big festivals with Soundwave and Big Day Out.
Soundwave.
Yep.
That was the one.
So they both kind of
yeah, no, I remember that. That was like one where I was like, I would love to play that at some point. Sorry, it was Soundwave. I remember like some of like the middle tier kind of acts like Defiled and Murder Dolls and not Murder Doll, Wednesday 13 where Cold Chamber I think played that.
Yeah.
Not too long. I mean that was like 2013, 2016 around that time.
Oh yeah, Soundwave was massive. Like we were it was like the best of the best, but yeah, that unfortunately fell by the wayside. But we've kind of got these smaller festivals now that pop up, and because festivals just started back here again before the pandemic, so we're waiting to see what's going to happen now. But we've got a couple booked in for this summer. But the smaller festivals I find actually work really well because it gives bands that longer set. So you get a lot of bands find more fans because people actually get to go and listen to them do a 70-minute set rather than a 35-minute set like what was happening at Soundwave.
Oh yeah, no, I remember those were pretty compressed because there were so many artists on Soundwave.
Oh yeah, and
I'm assuming you guys are big North Lane, 12-Foot Ninja, Blind Girls, like those kinds of Australian like staple acts, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But like you'd get the big bands like Green Day and Rammstein, they would come and do like a full hour set, but the other bands would be pushed into like a half-hour set at like 10 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, which is not the best.
I mean, that's what it looks like over here too, though. When you get Aftershock and Carolina Rebellion and all those, like it's kind of like all the middle tier, lower tier acts are up at like 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. Like who's gonna be there for that? And you just have Rob Zombie or Slipknot take an hour and a half in the evening. You know, it's much the same over here.
Yeah, we have a great festival here now called Unify, which is I'm kind of in a country area of Victoria, and it's actually held not far from where I am, and it's absolutely fantastic. They just take over an entire farm for a weekend, and it's just crazy. Because it's a 2-day festival, every band gets a little bit longer to play, so it's cool.
Nice. Do you know what time of the year that usually airs on?
Yeah, so that's normally in our summer, so February, March.
Oh, I'll be there in March, so maybe I'll come catch it if it's in March.
Awesome, that'd be fantastic. Well, guys,
yeah,
thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. We're going to play Flower Children on our show right now, but what would you like to say to all of your Aussie fans out there, not only before they listen to this amazing track, but before they go out and grab the album in a month as well?
Al, you want anything?
Oh, dude, I just want to say thanks for listening to us, and hopefully we can keep making records for you guys.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so